back. Welcome to Direct Line. Thank you guys for sticking with us. Now, earlier I gave you guys a number in which you could call us. This is live TV, of course, 601-914-0064. That's 601-914-0064. And I'm sure there's some parents out there of kids that will be beginning pre-K, kindergarten, first grade this upcoming year, and this is a show that you might definitely want to tune into. But there are also several other ways for you to get in touch with Direct Line. You can reach us on the World Wide Web. We are on Twitter, twitter.com/DirectLineTV23 or at DirectLineTV23. And you can also become a fan of Direct Line on Facebook, facebook.com/DirectLineTV23. Several ways for you to get in touch with this program. We want to put you guys in touch with the people that are shaping your lives. Now, we finally have Liz on the line. Liz, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Thank you so much for joining us. We got you in now, and you are the author of a book called Mississippi Learning: Why the State Students Start Behind. Now, Ms. Thompson and I were talking a little bit earlier about the advantages of pre-K. Talk about some of the things in your writings that you found with pre-K and some of the advantages of pre-K and why this program is so crucial to the young people in the state of Mississippi.
Sure. I do want to point out that it's an article, not a book, and it was in Time Magazine and on the Hechinger Report, which is based at Teachers College, Columbia University. And we've been doing a lot of work on pre-kindergarten issues for years, and we focused on Mississippi because it's the only state in the South that has no publicly funded pre-kindergarten, and one of only 11 in the U.S. And when you take a close look at what's happening to the children of Mississippi, you can really see the disadvantages that they start off with when they don't come to school with pre-kindergarten. Makes a huge difference. In one district that I visited while I was there in Canton, Mississippi, a full 10% of the student body after kindergarten was not able to go on to first grade because they simply weren't ready.
Right. Now, there are some proponents, and before we went to break, I said I was going to ask this question. There are some proponents who say that state-funded pre-K would not change the numbers at all whatsoever, and that in actuality it wouldn't help one way or the other if the state was funding it or not. Ms. Thompson, I want to get some of your thoughts on that. Do you think it would make a difference?
Well, I think parents having choices and high-quality education, early education environments, I think would make a difference. As I said earlier, it's not something that pre-K, Head Start, or the school system can do alone. There'll have to be a partnership between communities, between parents, and these early childhood environments. But certainly having those high-quality opportunities for children to be engaged in enriching activities, I think would change the numbers and would move the needle in a positive direction.
Right. Ms. Whittle, now, in your research for this article and seeing that there were 11 other states in the United States that were not funding pre-K, did you see any differences in the results or any differences in the achievement of those students in those 11 states as compared to the states that were being funded?
We did find that there's higher achievement very often in states that have pre-kindergarten and other kinds of classrooms. But there's a number of factors that go into this. Mississippi has a number of other disadvantages that make it more crucial and more difficult for the students before they come. For example, it suffers from the highest rate of child poverty in the country. And what we saw was the students of this state start behind and they stay behind, consistently posting some of the lowest scores on standardized tests of anywhere in the country. So it was not simply pre-K, a lack of pre-K, but that was one example, a very stark example of the disadvantages that the children of the state face.
Now, the state of Mississippi, of course, academically, and I'm looking at some studies here that, saying just over time that, with their academic results, a lot of these students don't improve as they grow older. Now, Ms. Thompson, can we make that direct correlation with, what happens, when they're at the ages of 3, 4, and 5, when they're getting ready to start in pre-K or Head Start, and what happens to them if they matriculate through school, if they, get into high school and then graduate and go on to become adults? Have we seen a correlation in that? Do those numbers really jibe together when you're talking about, Head Start, not doing well there, and then those academic results later on in life?
Well, the evidence is clear for Head Start that children who have opportunities for high quality early childhood environments have a higher graduation rate, are more likely to graduate high school, to go on to some college or develop a trade, are less likely to be involved adversely with the law. I think we have to look at a combination of things. That it's not just how well a child does within the classroom, but the whole culture around education in your community and in your state. And I think one thing we have to do in Mississippi is to really adopt a culture of valuing education for all children, because there are some children in the state of Mississippi that are doing quite well. And there is a larger segment that is not. And so, first of all, we've got to get on board with the fact that every child can learn if given the opportunity, and that every child is entitled to a good education.
Ms. Whelan, when we talk about, schools participation and we talk about parents, the argument can be made that a lot of this starts at home, and Ms. Thompson and I were talking about that a little bit earlier. Can you put the onus upon, the parents, especially when you're talking about, in a lot of instances, family structures not, being as tight-knit as they possibly need to be? There are a lot of proponents who will put that responsibility and that accountability on the family structure, on the home structure, on the parents. And is that something that we could, is that something that we should be doing in this particular case?
Well, of course, everything starts in the home and with families. But there's a limit to what families can do compared to what those who are highly trained and understanding of the skills that a child needs to succeed later on in life can actually do in a classroom. Pre-K is not necessarily just sending your kid to a classroom to learn how to play in a sandbox. I mean, a high-quality pre-kindergarten classroom really teaches skills that are incredibly important for what the kids are going to be doing next. There's pre-reading skills, there's socializing skills, there's learning how to take turns, learning how to line up, there's learning colors and numbers, pre-literacy skills, early reading. So there's a huge value to what can happen early on in a classroom that goes well beyond what happens in an individual home. Of course, the more families are engaged in talking to their children and teaching them and showing them around and showing them places, and even taking them even to a supermarket and saying, this is a banana begins with a B. But when you have high poverty levels, you have enormous stress. And families that are working very hard to survive, and they may not be able to provide the kind of experience that would be most helpful, and they certainly can't provide the kind of a high-quality pre-kindergarten classroom that will help students succeed later on. That's not an expectation. That's a reasonable one to put on homes and families.
Now, in looking through some more of this article here, Ms. Thompson, I will ask you this question. You have no one that will deny the fact that Mississippi needs some help as it pertains to our kids and our students, but there's a very small percentage of those people that feel like, as taxpayers, they should be footing the bill to help pay for this pre-K. Do you think that has something to do with the culture of the state of Mississippi? Is it the South? Why is it, although we have these numbers that clearly indicate that we need some help, we have a lot of Mississippians particularly that don't feel like pre-K and programs like pre-K should be state funded?
Well, I'm not sure that the majority of Mississippians feel that way. There was a survey done recently by the Godwin Group to the Learning Can't Wait campaign, which was funded by the Mississippi Center for Education Innovation. And one of the questions that was asked in this survey of registered voters was, did they think early childhood education was important? And the answer was yes. Right. The majority was yes. And would they be willing to pay for it? And the answer was yes. I think there are probably a few people who are speaking very loudly against us, it, but there are lots of people who understand and who appreciate the necessity of early childhood environments in all communities, in all zip codes, and across the state.
Now, Ms. Willen, is this something that you encountered? And I was looking through, some of the things that was in this Time article, and I actually did, see a number that said, I think it was about, 31%. I mean, that's close to half. I mean, it's probably a larger number that you would want or expect here in the state of Mississippi. But, do you feel like there was a culture that existed, or do you feel like there was a sentiment out there, Ms. Willen, of people who, felt like this is something that they did not want to foot the bill for?
No, I don't. And I'd like to emphasize that I'm at the very beginning of my reporting. This is one story. It was the first story. We're hoping to write dozens of stories. I'm going to be back in Mississippi actually in 2 weeks. I'm very excited. I'm going to be looking at some solutions and some early literacy programs, and I have another team of reporters coming down. So we're very early on in what we're finding in the state, and we don't pretend to be experts or want to make blanket statements about what the people of Mississippi want or don't want. But I do agree that there will be plenty of parents who would welcome free, publicly funded, high-quality pre-kindergarten. And I think that the state is not done discussing this. I think these issues are going to have been on the table there over and over and over again. And it's, has to start with the governor and the legislature coming forth with a proposal. And I think you'll find a lot of public support for it as it goes along. But I think it's going to unfold. There's a lot of economic problems in the state, and there's problems in the education system right from the start. But I actually met dozens of people, both advocates and educators, who felt strongly about the state's need for a high-quality pre-K system. And you'll notice I keep using the word high quality because just opening up these classrooms doesn't solve the problem. There's have to be highly trained teachers. There have to be effective teachers. There are a lot of standards that the classrooms need to follow. But I think as the public gets more and more educated about this, and I'm hoping our stories will educate them about what's needed in the state and about the education problems that the state faces. Obviously, they can make their own decisions. We're not trying to take an advocacy role here, but we do want to explore what the problems are, what the potential solutions are, and start this discussion like the one you're having tonight, which I think is very helpful. I think the more the public thinks about it and talks about it and looks at these issues and problems, the more likely it is that the state is going to want to figure out what they can do to support the children of the state and improve the education system.
All right, Ms. Willen, thank you so much for joining us. I'm getting a hard break right here. Thank you for joining us. Ms. Thompson, thank you for joining us as well. When we come back, we're going to have two new guests join us on set, but we're going to keep this conversation going about educating our kids, what we can do, pre-K, Head Start, and them going forward in school. You stay with us. This is Direct Line. We'll be right back.